Today, we take a look at the dumbest animal attacks ever, from a woman who confidently walked towards feeding lions to a drunken dare in crocodile-infested waters. But first, we begin in South Africa, where a safari tourist was already dead. She just didn't know it yet. It was July 19th, 2015, when the morning sun rose over a private game reserve in South Africa's Limpopo province. The 15,000-acre property bordered Kruger National Park, offering wealthy tourists exclusive wildlife experiences. The dry winter season had reduced available surface water, concentrating herbivores around remaining pans, and, in turn, drawing predators into predictable areas. Reserve policy required guides to keep at least 30 yards from lions on a fresh kill, and to reposition only when terrain allowed a clear escape route. That morning, the Land Cruiser had no roof or doors on the passenger side, leaving seated tourists exposed above the rails. Catherine Morrison, known as Katie to her 8,600 Instagram followers, was a 29-year-old marketing coordinator from San Diego, California. She had saved for 2 years to afford the 10-day luxury safari, viewing it as an investment in her influencer aspirations. Her social media revealed a troubling pattern of dangerous photo-seeking behavior, including standing on cliff edges in national parks and climbing over barriers at historical monuments. The morning game drive departed shortly after sunrise, carrying Katie and 4 other tourists in an open Land Cruiser. Guide Sifo Ndlovu, a 46-year-old with 18 years of experience, conducted the standard safety briefing before departure. He emphasized 3 non-negotiable rules: remain seated at all times, keep all body parts inside the vehicle, and never exit without explicit permission. 2 additional staff vehicles were on patrol that morning, but they were several miles away on separate sightings. The radio channel was busy with reports of elephant movement near a water pan, limiting how quickly backup could reach a lion encounter on the western boundary. Katie had nodded along while scrolling through her phone. Later that morning, Ndlovu received a radio call about a pride feeding on a buffalo kill near the western boundary. He altered course immediately, knowing a fresh kill offered rare viewing opportunities. The pride consisted of 9 lions, 3 adult females, 2 young males approximately 3 years old, and 4 cubs. They had brought down a large Cape buffalo overnight and were actively feeding when the vehicle arrived. Ndlovu positioned the Land Cruiser roughly 40 yards from the kill site, maintaining the distance his experience dictated as safe. Katie began photographing immediately, but grew visibly frustrated within minutes. She stood repeatedly despite Ndlovu's warnings, leaning dangerously over the vehicle's side. Other tourists shifted uncomfortably as Katie loudly complained that the distance was ruining her shots, that anyone could take these photos, that she needed something unique for her followers. Ndlovu repositioned the vehicle twice, attempting to satisfy Katie while maintaining safety margins. Each time, she declared the view inadequate. A middle-aged couple from Germany exchanged worried glances. An elderly British woman clutched her husband's arm nervously. Katie's behavior was making everyone uncomfortable, but Ndlovu's repeated warnings seemed only to irritate her further. The reserve's rules regarding lions at kills were not arbitrary. Ndlovu had witnessed the consequences of tourists ignoring them before. Over his career, he had responded to multiple near misses involving guests attempting to stand, lean out, or step down during predator encounters. In one incident several years earlier, a man had slipped while climbing back into a vehicle after disobeying instructions, narrowly avoiding injury when a lioness charged and stopped just short of contact. Following that event, the reserve updated its safety protocols, requiring guides to log any guest behavior that violated seating rules and to terminate drives if warnings were ignored repeatedly. Written reminders were posted on the vehicle's dashboard and repeated verbally at the start of every drive. The message was always the same: lions at a kill do not bluff. Unlike lions resting or moving through territory, feeding animals respond instantly and decisively to perceived threats. Ndlovu had emphasized this distinction during the briefing, explaining that once a lion commits, there is no time for intervention. Katie had been present for the explanation, but her attention had remained fixed on her phone. As Ndlovu briefly paused the vehicle to confirm the pride's location over the radio for later drives, the stop lasting only moments, Katie made her fatal decision. African lions represent apex predators of the African savanna, with adult females weighing between 280 and 400 pounds, and males reaching over 500 pounds. Their strength lies not in sustained speed, but in explosive acceleration, capable of covering short distances in seconds. A lion's bite force is sufficient to collapse a windpipe or damage major blood vessels, and their 4-inch canine teeth are designed to anchor prey during suffocation. When feeding, Lions become highly territorial, reacting aggressively to any figure that approaches a kill site. Younger males, lacking the restraint of older pride members, are often especially reactive in these situations. Katie opened the Land Cruiser's door and stepped onto the ground before anyone could physically stop her. Ndlovu shouted and immediately revved the engine while sounding the horn, but Katie was already moving away from the vehicle, her selfie stick extended in her right hand. She moved quickly across the open ground, her phone held high as she positioned herself for the shot. The two young males lifted their heads almost immediately, attention fixed on the upright figure moving toward them. Katie stopped just over 20 yards from the nearest lion and turned her back to the pride, raising her selfie stick to frame herself with the feeding lions behind her. The nearest male launched without warning. There was no growl or display. The lion transitioned from stillness to full acceleration in seconds, covering the distance in a short burst. Katie never saw the impact. The lion struck her from behind, driving her face first into the hard ground. Her selfie stick flew from her grasp as she fell, the phone landing screen up several feet away. The lion's jaws clamped onto her neck and shoulder area, applying crushing pressure as it anchored her to the ground. The second young male reached her moments later, biting into her torso and dragging her several feet as the two animals attempted to reposition her away from the main carcass. The interaction was brief and chaotic, lacking coordination. Based on the injuries documented at the scene, investigators later determined that critical blood vessels in the neck were damaged early in the attack. Katie lost consciousness within seconds. Her movements ceased shortly afterward as blood loss and airway collapse took effect. Ndlovu remained at a safe distance, continuing to sound the horn without advancing toward the pride. The other tourists stayed seated, several turning away as the lions dragged the body toward thicker brush. The primary attack lasted less than a minute. After a brief period of scanning, the lions disengaged and shifted their focus back toward feeding behavior near the kill site. Reserve rangers arrived later that morning, using multiple vehicles to pressure the pride away from both carcasses. Katie's body showed massive trauma to the neck, shoulder, and torso. Her phone was recovered near the point where she had fallen, its gallery revealing 3 attempted selfies taken at progressively closer distances. Witness statements and scene evidence confirmed that Katie had exited the vehicle voluntarily and against explicit safety instructions. The subsequent investigation cleared Ndlovu of any wrongdoing. While South Africa's bush had claimed one reckless tourist, Yellowstone's wildlife would soon demonstrate that America's national parks were equally unforgiving toward those who ignored warnings. It was August 3, 2016, when afternoon temperatures reached 87 degrees Fahrenheit in Yellowstone's Hayden Valley. The sprawling grassland attracted massive crowds during summer months, with tourists lining roadside pullouts to photograph the valley's resident bison herds. Park Service regulations required visitors to maintain a minimum distance of 25 yards from all bison, a rule posted extensively throughout the park. Rangers in Hayden Valley issued distance warnings throughout the day using handheld radios and vehicle loudspeakers. The pullout where the Henderson family stopped had no guardrail, and visitors routinely drifted off the asphalt onto packed dirt to shorten photo angles. Craig Henderson was a 51-year-old insurance adjuster from Phoenix, Arizona, whose family had learned to tolerate his confrontational personality. Colleagues described him as the type who argued with referees at his children's sporting events and complained loudly at restaurants until receiving discounts. His wife Linda had long ago stopped trying to moderate his behavior in public, choosing silence over the arguments that inevitably followed any attempt to rein him in. The Henderson family vacation included Craig, Linda, their 17-year-old daughter Megan, and 15-year-old son Tyler. They had arrived in Yellowstone 2 days earlier, during which Craig had already accumulated 2 verbal warnings from rangers for approaching elk too closely, and 1 written warning for feeding wildlife. The family stopped at a crowded roadside pullout in the mid-afternoon, after spotting a large bull bison grazing near the road. The animal, estimated at around 2,200 pounds, had been present for over an hour, drawing dozens of tourists who photographed from the edge of the pullout where most visitors clustered. Rangers had already issued multiple warnings to other visitors that afternoon about maintaining proper distance. Incidents involving bison were not unusual in Hayden Valley during peak summer months. Rangers recorded dozens of injuries each year stemming from visitors underestimating the animal's speed and aggression, particularly during periods of heavy crowding. Bulls accustomed to constant human presence often appeared calm until boundaries were crossed, responding with sudden, overwhelming force. Park officials routinely warned that most serious bison attacks occurred not in isolated areas, but in crowded valleys, where individuals felt emboldened by the presence of others and ignored the clear signals that preceded a charge. Craig began mocking nearby tourists, loud enough that several people turned to look. Daniel Reeve later stated that Craig gestured toward the crowd as he spoke before stepping away from the roadway. Ranger Miller called out for him to stop and maintain distance, but Craig continued forward, moving past the area where most visitors had stopped. Megan called after him as he walked closer to the bison, while other visitors backed away toward their vehicles. Craig approached to within roughly 15 feet of the bison before stopping to frame his shot. The bull had ceased grazing and turned to face him directly, its tail lifting from a relaxed position until it stood nearly vertical. One of the animal's front hooves scraped the ground, kicking up dirt. Several tourists shouted warnings, and one man yelled that the bison was about to charge. Craig ignored them all, squatting down and turning his back to the animal to take a selfie. American bison are North America's largest land mammals, with adult bulls weighing between 2,000 and 2,400 pounds and standing over 6 feet tall at the shoulder. Despite their massive size, bison can sprint at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour, easily outpacing any human. Their curved horns, composed of dense keratin over a bone core, are capable of inflicting severe penetrating and blunt force injuries. Bison display clear warning behaviors before charging, including raising their tails, pawing the ground, and orienting directly toward a perceived threat. The late summer mating season further elevates aggression levels, particularly in dominant bulls. The bull charged with no further warning. Its massive body surged forward almost instantly, covering the short distance separating it from Craig in a matter of moments. Craig had just begun to turn when the lowered head struck him from behind. One horn drove into Craig's lower back and flank area, inflicting catastrophic internal injuries as the force of the impact lifted him off his feet and flung him aside. He landed heavily on the ground several feet away, motionless for a moment before attempting to crawl. The bull followed immediately. Its hooves came down repeatedly on Craig's torso and upper body in a chaotic series of stomps. The crushing force shattered his ribcage and caused devastating trauma to his chest and head. The attack ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving Craig unmoving on the ground. Rangers who had already been responding to reports of a visitor violating wildlife distance rules arrived moments later and used their vehicle to push the bison away from Craig's body. Emergency responders reached the scene within minutes but found no signs of life. A subsequent medical examination confirmed that the injuries were incompatible with survival. Several tourists witnessed Craig's approach toward the bison and the immediate aftermath of the charge. Park officials documented multiple wildlife regulation violations leading up to the incident. The Henderson family briefly consulted attorneys about potential claims against the National Park Service, but ultimately abandoned the effort when evidence clearly showed Craig had ignored repeated warnings and park rules. While Yellowstone had punished foolish confidence with fatal efficiency, Australia's waterways would soon prove even more merciless when stupidity combined with intoxication. It was March 11, 2017, when late afternoon humidity settled over Cahill's Crossing in Australia's Northern Territory. The infamous causeway allowed vehicles to cross the East Alligator River during low tide, but incoming tides routinely transformed the crossing into a highly dangerous location. Warning signs in English, Chinese, and Japanese explicitly prohibited swimming and documented multiple fatal crocodile attacks at the site. Liam Fitzgerald was a 33-year-old construction worker from Darwin, whose weekends revolved around heavy drinking and what friends generously called adventurous behavior. His social media documented numerous dangerous stunts, including jumping from bridges into rivers and climbing industrial equipment while intoxicated. The fishing trip had begun that morning with Liam and a small group of friends from Darwin. Among them was Marcus Webb, 31, who had known Liam for several years. The group arrived at Cahill's Crossing with a cooler containing over 60 beers and minimal fishing equipment. By late afternoon, they had consumed most of the alcohol and caught nothing. The incoming tide had begun flowing over the causeway, bringing murky water and whatever moved beneath it. Cahill's Crossing was under constant monitoring by wildlife officers due to its long history of serious incidents. In the years leading up to 2017, multiple vehicles had been damaged by crocodiles lunging at tires, and several near-fatal encounters had occurred when visitors exited their cars during rising tides. Authorities routinely warned that the combination of alcohol, crowd behavior, and false confidence created the most dangerous conditions at the crossing. Despite clear signage and frequent patrols, enforcement relied largely on voluntary compliance, as officers could not remain stationed at the site continuously. Most fatal incidents followed a familiar pattern: intoxication, deliberate rule-breaking, and a rapid attack that left no opportunity for rescue. In the weeks prior to March 2017, wildlife officers had repeatedly emphasized that the late wet season increased crocodile activity at the crossing. Rising water levels expanded hunting zones, allowing large males to position themselves closer to the causeway's shallow edges. Crocodiles accustomed to vehicle traffic often ignored engines and human noise, remaining submerged near frequently used entry points. Officers warned that people standing or wading in the water were especially vulnerable, as the depth masked approach paths and eliminated the visual cues that might otherwise deter an attack. Once a crocodile committed, intervention was virtually impossible due to the speed and force involved. Liam had been waiting in the shallows for nearly 30 minutes, despite intermittent comments from others in the group. A dare emerged during the afternoon as alcohol consumption continued. Marcus offered Liam $200 to cross the causeway, a distance of roughly 50 feet through thigh-deep, opaque water. Liam accepted immediately, removing his shirt and entering the crossing. Marcus and another friend raised their phones as Liam waded forward. One man made a brief comment about the risk, but did not intervene. The tide-churned water obscured everything below the surface. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest living reptiles on Earth, with mature males commonly exceeding 16 feet in length and weighing over 2,000 pounds. They possess one of the most powerful bite forces of any living animal and rely on ambush tactics, remaining motionless underwater for extended periods before striking. Their attacks are fast and decisive, often involving sudden acceleration from concealment and violent body movements used to disable prey. Cahill's Crossing is widely regarded as hosting a dense population of large saltwater crocodiles. Liam had waded roughly 15 feet from the bank when the water beside him erupted. A crocodile, later estimated at approximately 14 feet based on measurements taken after capture, surged from slightly deeper water directly in his path. The strike came from his left side, the jaws breaking the surface and clamping onto his left leg above the knee. The force of the bite crushed and fractured bone immediately, yanking him off balance. The crocodile thrashed violently in the shallow water, twisting its body as Liam was pulled under and spun. His leg was wrenched at an unnatural angle as muscle and tissue tore under the force. He surfaced briefly, screaming, blood spreading rapidly through the water as the crocodile maintained its grip and dragged him back beneath the surface. Moments later, the animal repositioned its hold, hauling Liam under again with a powerful pull. The surface churned violently for several seconds before going still. Liam did not resurface. The remaining men stayed on the bank, phones still in their hands. Emergency services were contacted shortly afterward and arrived within half an hour, finding multiple intoxicated witnesses at the scene. Liam's body was recovered the following day several hundred yards downstream, missing his left leg in a manner consistent with crocodile feeding behavior and showing massive trauma to the torso. Wildlife officers tracked and captured a large male crocodile from the area 2 days later. Examination of the animal revealed material consistent with human remains. A subsequent coroner's report documented Liam's blood alcohol content at 0.24%, 3 times the legal driving limit, and ruled the death entirely preventable. While Australia's crocodile-infested waters had claimed one drunk man's life, Thailand's elephant sanctuaries would reveal that even domesticated animals could turn deadly when tourists refused to respect boundaries. It was January 28, 2018, when morning mist rose from the forested hills surrounding an elephant sanctuary in Thailand's Chiang Mai province. The facility housed 12 elephants rescued from logging operations and tourist camps throughout Southeast Asia, offering visitors supervised interactions under established safety protocols designed to balance education with risk management. Rebecca Walsh was a 26-year-old primary school teacher from Manchester, England, traveling solo through Southeast Asia during a 3-month sabbatical. Her social media revealed a passionate interest in animal welfare, with numerous posts criticizing elephant riding and circus performances. She had specifically chosen this sanctuary for its ethical reputation and favorable reviews from conservation-focused travel forums. The sanctuary operated on a structured daily schedule. Visitors were restricted to designated paths and platforms, with access controlled by staff stationed at transition points between guest areas and animal enclosures. Physical barriers varied by elephant, ranging from reinforced fencing for bulls to rope and cable boundaries for female groups under supervision. Guests were repeatedly reminded that the apparent calm of the animals did not reflect reduced risk. The morning briefing was conducted by head Mahout Somchai Patel, a 54-year-old with over 3 decades of elephant handling experience. 10 tourists attended, including Rebecca, who appeared engaged and asked several questions about the facility's rescue operations. Somchai devoted a significant portion of the briefing to Thong Chai, a 40-year-old bull elephant currently in Must. He explained that bulls in this condition were isolated, not as punishment, but as a standard safety measure practiced across reputable sanctuaries in Thailand. Thong Chai stood over 10 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed several tons, within the typical range for a mature Asian bull. He had arrived at the sanctuary 7 years earlier, after being removed from illegal logging operations in Myanmar. For the previous 2 weeks, he had displayed unmistakable must symptoms: temporal gland secretions visible as dark streaks down his face, constant urine dribbling, and repeated aggressive posturing toward handlers. Somchai emphasized that Thong Chai's enclosure was strictly off-limits, gesturing toward large red warning signs posted in 4 languages around the perimeter, and explaining that even experienced mahouts avoided direct contact during this period. Morning activities proceeded without incident. Tourists observed female elephants bathing and feeding under close supervision, with mahouts maintaining physical separation between animals and guests at all times. Rebecca participated enthusiastically, photographing the elephants while remaining within permitted areas. As scheduled, the group returned to the main pavilion late in the morning for lunch, a period when staff attention shifted toward food preparation and animal care rotations. Rebecca finished eating quickly and excused herself. Staff later determined that Rebecca walked away from the pavilion and headed toward Thong Chai's enclosure, rather than the restrooms or gift area. She paused at one warning sign, standing still long enough to read it, before continuing. Shortly afterward, she climbed over the cable barrier and entered the restricted zone. Male Asian elephants in Must experience dramatic surges in testosterone that produce profound behavioral changes, including heightened aggression and unpredictable responses to intrusion. Bulls in Must have fatally attacked experienced mahouts with years of handling experience, sometimes with little observable warning. An adult male elephant can deliver immense force with its trunk, while a downward step from a forefoot concentrates several tons of weight onto a small surface area, easily causing fatal injuries. For this reason, unfamiliar humans entering a bull's space during Must face extreme risk. Rebecca walked slowly toward Thong Chai, who was feeding approximately 50 yards away. She stopped periodically to photograph him, closing the distance in stages. When she reached roughly 15 feet from the bull, she knelt down and extended her phone for a selfie. Thong Chai ceased feeding as soon as Rebecca entered the enclosure. His ears extended outward and his body oriented directly toward her. As she knelt, his trunk lifted and curled back toward his head. A low rumble emanated from his chest, vibrating through the ground. The charge came suddenly. Several tons of elephant crossed the short distance in seconds, trunk raised and ears fully extended. Rebecca had just enough time to lower her phone before the trunk struck her squarely in the chest. The impact hurled her backward several feet, her body slamming into the hard-packed ground. Before she could recover, Thong Chai stepped forward. His front foot came down onto her torso with crushing force. The impact collapsed her ribcage, driving fractured bones into vital organs. The elephant shifted his weight and stepped again, applying further pressure as Rebecca's body went still. The injuries were immediately catastrophic. Mahouts who noticed Rebecca's absence from lunch and heard the trumpet were already moving toward the enclosure. They arrived shortly after the attack ended, using noisemakers and familiar commands to drive Thong Chai away. No resuscitation was attempted due to the extent of the injuries. The investigation reviewed all available security footage, documenting Rebecca climbing the barrier and approaching Thong Chai despite posted warnings. Thai authorities temporarily suspended sanctuary operations pending review, but ultimately cleared the facility of wrongdoing. Veterinary specialists concluded Thong Chai's behavior was consistent with a bull in Must responding to a territorial intrusion. Requests from Rebecca's family to euthanize the elephant were denied by wildlife authorities. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.